Thank you, Reverend Zavada. Thank you, Unity Community of Ashland. It's such a thrill to be here. The universe is a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. This is one of the primary teachings of my mentor, Thomas Berry, spelled Berry. He said, on another occasion, he said, the universe is composed of subjects to be communed with, not objects to be exploited. Right, so when he's using the word subjects, he's not talking about like there's a king and then you have subjects. He's talking about personhood, right? He's talking about like the subject of a sentence. Like, who do we consider a person? Who do we consider a real being with agency and autonomy? Is it only white men with property? Is it only men? Is it only those with wealth? Does it extend to all human beings? Does it extend beyond that? To all sentient beings? What if it extends even further than that? What if a raindrop is a subject? What if an atom is a subject? What if the ecosystem is a person of some kind, right? So can we expand our sense of personhood, of agency, of interbeing and intercommunion, so that we sensitize our awareness, we fill our hearts, and we act from the place where we know that the universe is composed of subjects to be communed with, not objects to be exploited. This is the potential for the process of democratization that I think we're in the midst of. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said that our generation has been given an indescribably important assignment to fulfill a process of democratization that this nation has taken to far too slowly. So the topics that I want to touch on briefly in the time that we have together this morning include interdependence, interconnectedness, include cosmology. Cosmology is a fancy word for like worldview, right? What is the basic story that we're operating from? Is it a worldview that tells us that nature is material, that it's like mechanistic, that it's composed of resources to be exploited for the maximization of wealth and power for a small sliver of people at the top of the hierarchy? Is that the kind of worldview we're operating from, or that we want to continue operating from? Or can we open to a more mystical, a more shamanic, a more sacred worldview? One that's exemplified by all the indigenous traditions of the world. One that's exemplified by the great religious traditions at their best. One that's reinforced by our new understandings of science, sciences of complexity and chaos. So we understand the intricate interdependence of all phenomena. Again, this is not a new understanding. So let me share a few voices of interdependence, I think we could call it. Hold on one second. Again, this is nothing that the Unity Community of Ashland doesn't already understand, but just to help us inspire each other along the way. Here's Robinson Jeffers, the poet from 1934. I believe that the universe is one being. All its parts are different expressions of the same energy, and they are all in communication with each other, influencing each other, therefore parts of one organic whole. This is physics, I believe, as well as religion. I love that statement at the end. This is physics, I believe, as well as religion. Bell Hooks in 2001. Spiritual life is first and foremost about commitment to a way of thinking and behaving that honors principles of interbeing and interconnectedness. Bell Hooks. I got to read that again. Spiritual life is first and foremost about a commitment to a way of thinking and behaving that honors principles of interbeing and interconnectedness. I once had a Heineken with bell hooks at a conference in the mid-'90s. I think it was the Common Boundary Conference. If anybody remembers Common Boundary magazine, I know Swami does. And as we were drinking a Heineken, I worked up the courage, and I said, do you mind if I ask you a question? She said, sure, go ahead. I said, now, the lowercase in your name, if you know bell hooks, she uses a lowercase b, lowercase h. I said, is that a spirit? I don't know. I said, is that a Buddhist thing? And she said, it's a spiritual thing. Which, of course, but it's such an interesting, like the feminist Robin Morgan once said, etymology is political code. Etymology, the roots of words, is political code. So how we use language says so much. But we capitalize our individual names, right? We don't generally capitalize Earth. And yet we're all part of the Earth community. Thomas Berry would say the Earth is primary. The human is secondary. If you want to take care of the human, you have to take care of the Earth as primary, right? But I just think that's interesting. We don't capitalize universe. We don't capitalize Earth. Generally, I mean, I do. Thomas Berry in his later works does. But you see what I'm saying? But we capitalize their name. So it's such a powerful statement that bell hooks and others who have adopted this practice are making, to de-emphasize the individual, emphasize the collective, the community. Okay, I've got to keep an eye on my time because I could go forever. Let me share a little poem now that I think, again, I've got so many more quotes. Let me just read a couple more. But again, I know you already understand this, but bring in some more voices. This is one for Hildegard of Bingen, born in 1098. You know you're old when you got a 10 in your name. 1098, Hildegard von Bingen writes, everything that is in the heavens, on the earth, and under the earth is penetrated with connectedness, is penetrated with relatedness. Here's Thomas Berry. What is the commons? For me, it's the universe. The universe is made as a commons. The universe is so interdependent and so present, all parts to one another. This sense of presence is a deep mystery of the universe. And that's why it's important for each of us to relate to each other in a creative way, in a way that gives life the wonder and the beauty and the intimacy that it should have. In the workshop I'm doing this afternoon, we'll be talking more about creativity. But the same perception of the poet is the same kind of perception that I'm talking about when I talk about this mystical, shamanic, sacred mode of recognizing the divinity that's just billowing forth from every manifestation of this earth-universe process. Our job is to pay attention to that, to pay attention to the realities of our heart and our awareness and not the stultified dogmas and divisions, right? We're still in the midst of this spiritual journey. But we have voices and we have resources and we have guides. So I'm trying to draw on some of these guiding voices to help inspire us this morning. Martin Luther King says, we are all involved in the single process. Which reminds me so much of my mentor, Thomas Berry, and Brian Swim, and other. I've been blessed with many mentors, Joanna Macy, Charlene Spretnak, Miriam McGillis. But let me read a poem that I think speaks to a little bit of these ideas. This is a poem I wrote. It's called We Make Music. We exist. Check, check. No problem. I wasn't holding it. This is one of my pet peeves when people hold the mic like this. So thank you. We make music. We exist amidst the scattered shards of shattered stars. We exist amidst the scattered shards of shattered stars, and we make music. We rock on this rock. We flow on this globe. We go from Muddy to Buddy, from Janice to Alanis, from Charlie Parker to Ali Farka, from Artie Shaw to Mardi Gras, from Madonna to Rihanna, from Raga to Gaga, from Ode to Joy to Soulja Boy. The earth was once lava and now sings opera. The earth was once lava and now sings opera. Our home is a poem. The planet is a sonnet. We exist amidst the scattered shards of shattered stars, and we make music. Yeah, but I don't have that much longer to go. So let's switch a little bit to democracy. The reality of our interdependence, our interconnectedness, is not news to the unity community of Ashland. But the ongoing challenge is, how do we structure our society, our economics, our politics in a way that honors the sacred dignity of each individual, that honors our mutual interdependence and our interbeing? This is an ongoing challenge, right? I want to bring to you some of the words from a man named Robert Ingersoll. Anybody know Robert Ingersoll? Steve does. This is one of the leading voices of the 19th century. And probably second only to Ralph Waldo Emerson in terms of heralded and controversial public speakers. But Robert Ingersoll was a free thinker. He was called an atheist. He called himself an agnostic, but he believed very strongly in the separation of church and state. He was an abolitionist. He was an advocate for the rights of women, the rights of children. And he gave an address on the 100th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So I just want to share a few sentences from Robert Ingersoll that he spoke on July 4th, 1876. Ingersoll writes, "The Declaration of Independence is the grandest, the bravest, and the profoundest political document that was ever signed by the representatives of a people. It is the embodiment of physical and moral courage and of political wisdom. I say of physical courage because it was a declaration of war against the most powerful nation then on the globe. It was made when thousands of English soldiers were upon our soil and when the principal cities of America were in the substantial possession of the enemy. And so I say, all things considered, it was the bravest political document ever signed by man. And if it was physically brave, the moral courage of the document is almost infinitely beyond the physical. They had the courage not only, but they had the almost infinite wisdom to declare that all men are created equal. Such things had occasionally been said by some political enthusiasts in the olden time, but for the first time in the history of the world, the representatives of a nation, the representatives of a real, living, breathing, hoping people declared that all men are created equal. With that one blow, with one stroke of the pen, they struck down all the cruel, heartless barriers that aristocracy, that priestcraft, that kingcraft had raised between man and man. They struck down with one immortal blow that infamous spirit of caste that makes a god almost a beast and a beast almost a god. With one word, with one blow, They wiped away and utterly destroyed all that had been done by centuries of war, centuries of hypocrisy, centuries of injustice. That's a dramatic statement. The grandest, the bravest, and the profoundest political document ever signed by representatives of a people? No, of course, we all know that this vision that all people are created equal was written by men who were being hypocritical. We understand, those of us who have engaged with any type of real history, that this nation was built on stolen labor, stolen land, on settler colonialism and genocide, right? We understand that. But the vision, the legal scholar Charles Black has put forward the idea. He said it roughly like this. He said, hypocrisy often commits itself beyond easy retraction. Hypocrisy often commits itself beyond easy retraction. So would it have been better if these men had not made this hypocritical statement? No. We thank them for their hypocrisy in this instance because they put forward a vision that could not be easily retracted. And it's an ongoing process of democratization that we're still in the midst of. So how can we have a politics that's not based on violence, that's not based on coercion, that's not based on hierarchy, that's not based on plutocracy and oligarchy, the rule of the rich and the rule of the powerful? How can we move toward a true democracy? How can we move even beyond a true democracy of human beings to what Vandana Shiva would call earth democracy? I don't have the answers to this. These are just ongoing questions that we're in the midst of struggling toward. But I am here to say this morning that the struggle makes sense and the struggle continues. Václav Havel once said something along the lines of, hope is not the assurance that everything will turn out all right. Hope is the conviction that something makes sense, no matter how it turns out. So I'm here to join with you this morning in the knowledge that our work for ecology, our work for social justice, our work for democracy makes sense, despite the challenges of today, despite the challenges that we'll surely face tomorrow. As Gandhi once said, the truth of a few will count. The untruth of millions will vanish. Gandhi said, the truth of a few will count. The untruth of millions will vanish. And then he goes on to say it's like the wheat and the chaff. You know, he uses that image. Okay, I got to think about wrapping up, but I want to share two more quick things. This is another poem. I was scrolling yesterday and I saw a statement that I thought was powerful. It said something like, compassion doesn't mean we don't fight. It just means we don't hate. So, again, we can quibble about the term fight and blah, 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 but I think we need to be willing to take a stand for the marginalized, to take a stand with the marginalized, to follow the lead of the oppressed as they lead these movements for democracy, for ecology, for social justice, for racial justice, for gender justice. This is a poem called To the Quislings. And I posted this. I wrote this and I posted this on January 20th of 2025. To the quislings, to the cowards, to those thirsting after power, heaven and history will record what you do. To the obsequious, to the toadies, to the lackeys, to the yes men, to the go along to get along, return on your investment. In the fall of Rome you call your home. Heaven and history are witnessing. To the Bezos and Zucks, to the Murdochs and Musks, controlling our thoughts with trolls and bots, To the fascists who would ruin all the world to rule the ashes. To the vote suppressors, disenfranchisers, and Jim Crow juniors, heaven and history are recording what you do. To those filled with rage who can't tell, this will not age well. To the tuned out, apathetic both sidesers in the middle who won't do a thing because you can only do a little. To the 80 million folks with better things to do than vote. But especially to all of you in powerful positions. The editors-in-chief, the billionaires, the politicians. Heaven and history are recording what you do. The whole world is watching, and the little ones too. Heaven and history are recording your example, and the downtrodden, trampled upon masses never stay trampled. So to the powers of the hour, don't be shocked to see 100 million folks standing up for democracy. We can win. We can win. We've got to begin, though. The climate's cooked, the window's closing. Now is the time. We need dreaming, not dozing. To everyone around the world who won't cease to work for workers, solidarity, the planet, justice, peace, heaven and history are supporting what you do. To those who in the spirit of love are steadfast and brave, history and heaven will remember your name. Okay, just one last thing. One is just a very short quote from a Sarayaku activist from the Amazon rainforest who told David Haskell, this Sarayaku activist said, "Rivers are alive and sing. This is our politics. Rivers are alive and sing. This is our politics." Isn't that stunning? Okay. Now I'm just going to end with a few sentences about democracy and poetry. Poetry, broadly understood, is the process by which we encounter the cosmic realities/mysteries, engage with their depths, and reciprocate our creative energy in irreplaceable specificity. In a time of robot poets and algorithmic artists, humanity risks losing our connection to the soul of the arts and the purpose of poetry. In a time of fascist politics, authoritarian breakthrough, and assaults on the foundation of democracy and self-governance, such as fair elections, the rule of law, the peaceful transfer of power, free expression, and academic independence, humanity risks losing its mooring in the democratic vision of an open society. Humanity risks losing its mooring in the democratic vision of an open society. In totalitarian regimes, the arts are intolerable. The voice of the poet is perilous. Poetry reveals that we live in a cosmos of persons, expressing itself as a democracy of voices. The dream of democracy is the political expression of our bio-spiritual interconnectedness. The dream of democracy is the political expression of our bio-spiritual interconnectedness. Democracy is organized reverence for the sacred significance of each individual and a creative commitment to our collective unfolding. Thank you so much. Thank you, Reverend.